Frieda, we are rolling. So today's October 22nd,
Maybe.
2014, and we're with Frieda Macarov. What's your maiden name?
Frieda Rabinowitz.
Rabinowitz. Okay. And we're at your house in Nayot in Jerusalem, and this is the first meeting of our interview. We might finish today. If not, we'll finish maybe on Friday. But basically what I want to ask you is I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you were born, your parents, their background, where they came from, what kind of house you grew up in. Let's start with that.
Well, I'll start with my parents. My father came to the States when he was 13 or 14. He came from Lumja in Poland, and we don't know where my mother came from. When my father married my mother, I heard that they had been neighbors, but I don't know if they were neighbors in Brooklyn where they lived, or they were neighbors in Europe. And my family is very upset with me that I don't know where my mother's family came from in Europe.
Do you know your mother's maiden name?
Silverstein.
Silverstein.
Yeah. And I was born in Brooklyn.
I just need you to always look at me though.
I was born in Brooklyn, February 12th, 1924. We lived on Eastern Parkway when I was born. I don't remember that. And then we lived on Rockaway Parkway in Brooklyn. And I lived there till I was in 4th grade. And my memories of Brooklyn are very, very positive. The Chinese restaurant we used to eat in, and the Charlotte Russe that they had in the candy store. And we were living next to my mother's brother. So I didn't feel like an only child because I was part of a very, very warm family. And my mother's and my father's families both lived in New York at that time. So it was convenient to see them, even though we didn't have private cars. We went places by the New York subway or the bus, and we had a very warm family life.
Tell me a little bit about your parents.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you. My father had a men's shirt manufacturing company, and I remember visiting the factory, and I remember sitting in his chair and thought when I grew up I would be the boss. But because of the Depression, he lost the factory, and things were pretty tough. I think because of what happened to them financially, they moved to South Ozone Park. Also, my mother's sister lived there. Her husband was a pharmacist, and with the material what was left over from the factory, my father opened up a men's clothing store. South Ozone Park reminds me of what Kiryat Shmona must be like. It was very, very dull. I had friends who were my friends were Jewish children, all children of the storekeepers in South Ozone Park. I had friends in school who were Italian because there were a lot of Italian Americans. And life in South Ozone Park, I regret. We had no scouts, we had no Jewish organization, no Zionist anything. When I look back on it, the rabbi, we had a Rabbi Per, he was interested in prayer. He wasn't interested in giving us a background of Zionism or...
We're definitely going to get to that. And I want to know, so you're an only child, is that correct? But you said that you grew up with your cousins. And
yes.
So you had a broad... Talk a little bit about that. Did you know any of your grandparents?
When we lived in Brooklyn, my father's father was alive. And I remember him very well because he used to take me to his synagogue. And I remember thinking, when I go old, I'll get married in that synagogue.
Do you remember the name of the synagogue?
No, no.
But it was in
Brooklyn. And I think that they lived on I forgot the name of the street now. But I remember also my grandfather, I don't know whether he owned the apartments or he collected rent, because there were gypsies living in Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah, they are still living in Brooklyn. In fact, when my father died, he died in Brookdale Hospital in Brooklyn. There were gypsies visiting their family with their colorful clothes. I've always felt very positive about gypsies.
Really?
I wish more people would feel positive. Anyway, he used to take me to the synagogue. We used to walk around to these apartments, but I don't remember the name of this.
Okay. Hold on, let me just try my phone. No, I was just asking, it's...
You know, it would be nice. It probably isn't even in existence anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sometimes you remember these names, and when you do remember those names, of like these, of these places, it's always,
The other day I remembered the name of the street he lived on, and now I forgot. Okay.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
No, I just remembered it was someplace in Poland that they had named the street.
But do you remember where he was from in Poland?
My father,
Yeah.
Lumsha.
Lumsha. Where is that? Is that Eastern Poland, Western Poland? Do you know where it is kind of geographically?
It's not too far from Warsaw.
Okay. And what kind of person was your father? Was he a religious person? Did he speak
My
Yiddish?
father would have loved to, no, both my parents spoke English. My father would have loved to be religious, but he had a shop, and Shabbat, Saturday, was one of the biggest days. And my mother was not religious at all. She was even irreligious, but...
So what kind of house did you grow up in, as far as Zionism, Judaism, Kashrut, like...
Kamat Efes Efes, Kamat 0000.
But you knew about your Jewish identity.
The reason I knew about my Jewish identity, because we all went to this little shul in South Ozone Park, and Rabbi Per, I liked him very, very, very much. Per, P-E-R-R.
P-E-R-R.
And I think one of his sons is here. And we would go the holidays, and we would have parties on not on Yom Kippur, on Hanukkah, and we did a few little things, but it was just around the holidays. And
high holidays. During the high holidays, that's when the identity came out.
Yes, all the Jews in the town.
You didn't keep Sabbath. You didn't keep kosher.
I think we kept kosher. I didn't even know about. We ate out non-kosher, like
Sure.
in the Chinese restaurants, but I don't think we had anything in the house that was non-kosher. And my mother didn't do much cooking either, so.
Tell me, why did your family move from Brooklyn to Queens?
I think because of the financial, that he probably was able to rent a store much more cheaply than because in Brooklyn my mother had a hat shop, and she gave that up. I was young, I was in Kita Dalet, and I didn't mind moving because my aunt lived across the street, and she had 3 children, and everyone was very nice to us.
I just need you to always...
The other girls that lived in South Ozone Park, we were all very good friends, so...
So there was no trauma of you leaving Brooklyn?
Oh, no, not at all, no.
And you had a lot of cousins?
Yeah. I had a lot of cousins also in Rockaway Beach.
Sure, Brooklyn.
So that we used to visit there frequently.
Now, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up in the Depression.
Yes.
Do you remember the Depression?
Of course, I remember seeing pictures of people jumping out of the windows, committing suicide. And my father's 2 sisters, one of the sisters moved in with the other sister in Rockaway because they couldn't afford rent. And another, my father's father, I was told that he was on, what do you call it? When you don't work, you get
unemployment.
Unemployment insurance, and that the way he was able to make some money, that one of his in-laws had a big apartment house, and he was able to clean it or something. No, I was very well aware that we were far from. The things were very bad. Not especially with David, myself, my family, but I knew that
You saw it around you. It was felt.
yeah, yeah, and I knew brother, can you spare a dime? It was very, very,
It was a common sentence.
very pervasive, very pervasive.
Now, in Queens, what's the name of the neighborhood you moved to in Queens?
South Ozone Park.
South Ozone Park. Is it a Jewish neighborhood?
No, it was Italian, and when I think about my boyfriend at that time was named Romano, Romano and Costello, and also at that time I really began to, some of them had been in reform school. It was, you know, I was so naive, and I think my parents didn't protect me enough, because I thought going to a reform school was wonderful. It was like going to a dormitory to live in with other children, like a summer camp. But I didn't go to reform school.
Okay. So your childhood basically is in a growing up in a house that's Jewish. You know who you are. You know the holidays, but that's basically where it ends.
That's right. And I'm telling you, we were really neglected in South Ozone Park by every youth organization.
Jewish youth organization.
Yeah.
They just weren't interested in getting it. Well, there was.
I don't know. Maybe we were too few people.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What organizations do you hear about as a child?
I used to read about it. I think it's called the 4 or 5 something. But it was an organization of an agricultural organization. But I just read about it.
Uh-huh.
I belonged to nothing.
Belong to nothing.
Nothing.
And you enroll in high school?
Pardon me?
You enroll in high school?
Of course. I went to junior high school. I was in rapid advancement or something. I was a very good student. And I went to John Adams High School. And when I went to Brooklyn College, I realized that John Adams was on a very low level. I could compare myself to the Brooklynites who had gone to good high schools and with high achievement levels. Even though I was very good in my high school, it wasn't equivalent.
Okay. So, while you're growing up in Queens, while you're growing up in Brooklyn, even though Brooklyn you kind of don't really remember that well, do you remember any shape or form do you recall any anti-Semitism?
Anti-Semitism? No. I never felt any anti-Semitism. One time, this is really crazy. One time when I was in junior high school, a teacher said something about the Hebrew children not coming to school. And I was very upset. I didn't want to be called Hebrew. I was Jewish. And I complained to my mother that but of course at that time I knew about Hitler and everything. But I didn't, now when I look back at it, I just didn't like being called a Hebrew. But no anti-Semitism that I felt. No. I didn't feel any.
Very interesting. So you were born in 1924, which means that you graduated high school in 1938.
14 years.
Well, 18,
no, 1930. Wait, 1924, 1934, 1942.
42.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beginning of the war.
The beginning of the war. We're gonna go to the beginning of the war, and I'm gonna ask you. You're living in your house. You're in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys talk about what's happening in Europe with the Jews in Germany? And do you know about this?
Of course.
I'm talking about before the war. Kristallnacht and the Nuremberg laws.
I
the
knew.
Persecution of the German Jews.
I have very little memory of it because now I can't remember what I knew then and what I know now.
Right.
I remember being very, very upset about Hitler, and I was wondering. I remember wondering why they couldn't tunnel under. This is pre-Aza. Why they couldn't tunnel under where he was and blow him up. So, and then I used to see the movies, the newscast at the movie house. So I knew, but until the boys I knew went to the army, I really didn't quite know how bad things were.
So you never really heard your parents talking about it, or no? You never met any refugees that came from Germany?
Yes, we did, because there was a refugee woman, a German woman, who used to knit sweaters, and she used to bring it to our store to sell for her. And I also had heard that the refugees that were living in Forest Hills, which was considered a wealthy neighborhood, were very snobbish and very, and not like the rest of us, but.
They were German Jews.
Yeah.
Very elitist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
It's funny, David was talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, hello, David. How are you, sir?
Okay, so.
Good.
Oh, I forgot you were coming.
Are you working in the garden?
I do my own homework.
Wow.
I'm sure I'm didn't mean to get in.
It's okay. That's okay.
I got other things to do.
Good to see you.
I bet the computer.
And so I remember that being elitist and not. Because most of the Jews that I knew came from Russian and Poland background.
So it was, and these were, okay, so you do remember hearing a little bit from these German refugees about what's going on in Europe. So it was known, you knew about it.
Yes, I did know about it.
And so the whole time you're in high school, you don't belong to any Zionist movement, you don't, nothing.
Waste of years.
No, well, not at all. I mean,
no, I feel it was. I read a great deal, and I was.
Did you read about Zion? No. You read poetry, you read books, novels.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So you graduate from high school,
Mm-hmm.
and what does Frieda want to do?
I want to go to college. So I had done very well in college, but not in French.
In high school?
Yeah, I was an honest student, but I wasn't accepted to Queens College, which I think I wanted to go to, but I was accepted at Brooklyn College. And that was quite an experience for me, with being with all the Brooklyn girls and boys.
It's a different.
I realized how naive I was, and
because Brooklyn's tough, right? Brooklyn, it's like the real deal.
No, they were just more alive. They just knew more than I. I felt like a little country hick.
Really?
Yes.
So you went to Brooklyn College? Where was Brooklyn College located? Do you remember?
In Flatbush.
In Flatbush.
It was a lovely, lovely little college. I really loved it
and
there.
You commuted every day from Queens?
It was a long. But I used to meet friends on the train, and in those days, I don't know. I took a bus, I took a train, I took another train, I walked, and everything. I would meet people on the train that were students too,
Mm-hmm.
and so that it wasn't a terrible experience.
No.
It was, in fact, it was positive.
Uh-huh. And you're studying at Brooklyn College, you're 18 years old, is that correct? Right after high school?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are you studying?
I wanted to study social science or history because I was crazy about our history teacher, and I wanted to study history and social science or political science.
So what did you study? So
then the war broke out.
Okay, what year are we talking about? Are we talking September 39, or we're talking?
No, 41.
We're talking 41, December
Yeah.
41.
Yeah.
Where are you when Roosevelt delivers his famous speech?
D-Day?
No, not D-Day. Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
Where are you?
No, I'm sorry, I meant to say Pearl
Yeah.
Harbor. I was coming from the train.
Because these are days that you remember for the rest
Oh,
of your
yes.
life.
I was coming out of the train station, and kids were selling newspapers and saying that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. I had never heard of Pearl Harbor, but I knew what bombed was. And then when I got to the college, everyone was talking about what had happened. We all somehow knew. And after that, very quickly, the boys started leaving, disappearing, being, not disappearing, being, what's the word? Drafted. And I went to a movie, I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was a nurse in the movie taking care of wounded soldiers. And I said, Frieda, this is for you. History and political science is for another day. You go study nursing. So I left Brooklyn College and I went to Bellevue Hospital.
Wow, I know Bellevue.
That was a wow, that was really an experience. And I was accepted at Bellevue. And those were, also when I was at Bellevue, we were, I can't speak English. We were, I was a cadet in the medical corps. We were, drafted. We were drafted into the medical corps, and when we graduated, if the war was still on, I would have been a officer in the medical corps.
How long was the program at Bellevue? 3
years.
So by the time you got in there and the time you got out, the war was over?
That's right. My last half of the 3 years, I was sent to an army hospital. Because we were in the cadet corps, but the war ended while I was at the army hospital, and
the army hospital was probably somewhere in Texas or Mississippi.
No, it was in New York, Upper New York, in Utica,
upstate?
Utica, New York. I was very disappointed because I had wanted to go to an Indian reservation, but it was an army hospital. And Air Force Hospital, and so when I graduated, we were discharged from the cadet corps, and I went to work at Bellevue.
Really?
Yes. I was a graduate nurse, and I loved Bellevue.
What did you like about Bellevue?
It was in Manhattan. It was on the East River, and I told you before that I'm Aquarius, so I love water. And I just love the poor people, Miskanim, and also we were taught so well to treat everyone with respect and not to look down on anyone. And also we were told as Bellevue nurses, if we walked through the neighborhood where there were drunks and addicts, they wouldn't touch a Bellevue nurse.
So you're safe.
Yeah,
where's Bellevue? Bellevue's like
at 23rd and 1st Avenue.
23rd?
Yeah, 23rd to 26th.
Right. Why was I thinking that it's much higher up?
No, it wasn't.
No.
No.
Okay, I know exactly where
it was a wonderful, for
how
me.
How long did you work there for?
I worked there, at that time I also started studying for my bachelor's in nursing at New York University.
At NYU?
Yeah. And then also at this time I was very much interested in communism.
Okay, very interesting. Please.
While I was a student nurse, we used to sell things to help the Russians, little wooden bracelets, and I knew about Azerbaijan, that they were planning to have a Jewish state. I also was very interested in politics and one tax, I forgot the name of somebody. I began to grow out of South Ozone Park, nothing. And after I couldn't continue working at Bellevue because I was studying at New York University and I couldn't work shifts. So I got a job working with the United Workers Union. It was a woman, the United Workers Union. It was a clinic for women.
GYN?
Gynecological, yeah.
GYN.
Yeah,
Yeah.
GYN. And I hated it. I couldn't stand it. All day long we were giving injections and it was so boring. None of the drama of Bellevue. And one of my friends said that she was looking for a camp job. And she came and told me that Brandeis Camp, which was a Zionist training camp, was looking for a nurse, but she wouldn't go there because it was for college students. And we had already dated doctors and dentists, and she wasn't interested in a young college student. So I went, and I didn't know, I'd heard, I can't say I never heard of Zionism, but I remembered something, and he's living here now. His name is Stanley Berger. Sometimes boys used to come from Richmond Hill, religious boys, Zionist boys, and I don't know why I very much appreciated them. I very much respected them. And I realized if Stanley Berger and his friend, both of them like Ayman Aliyah, could be Zionists, what could be so bad? I'll go to a Zionist camp. And that's where I met David.
That's where you met David.
Yeah.
We'll get to that very briefly. I want to get back to your little period where you were dazzling with communism. Tell me a little bit about that, because this is after
Well, look,
World War II.
my father was a socialist.
What does that mean, he was a socialist? Was
He was interested.
Was he an active socialist?
No, but he would vote for the socialist, and he was concerned about unions. He was concerned about work people. He was concerned about like
proletarian. The proletarian.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wasn't. I think it's because we were poor.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I became. Some of the people that I met in Bellevue, they were communists, and they were the most interesting people. They were interested in what was going on in the world. I never became a member of the Communist Party, but one of my best friends, her father was a Trotskyite. So I never really delved deeply into this, but I liked the people who were part of this. And in fact, before I met David, one of my friends wanted to go into business. He wanted to be a capitalist. I was shocked. I didn't know anyone who wanted to be a capitalist.
So, it's after the war right now,
Yeah.
and you take this summer job at Brandeis University
Because of Stanley Berger.
because you
You
know,
know these nice young men, yeah.
and you're single.
Yeah, and he also told me I could go to the lectures there. It was a nursing job, and the students, the campers were college students, so that most of them were pretty healthy most of the time. I didn't have to sit in the infirmary. If nobody was there, I could go to all the lectures,
Okay. And it was a summer gig.
Yeah.
Now, David told me how you guys met. I want to hear your side of the story.
I met him first when I came to camp, and I thought he was a young kid. He was skinny and small, and I didn't see he was bald. And I wasn't very impressed. And little by little, I got to know him and his friend Gershon Fratkin. And I remember that there was the Aurora Borealis or something, and he ran to the infirmary to tell me to go out and look at it, and I realized that he was interested in me. And then I became very, 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 interested in Zionism and the Jewish state.
Okay, so what's happening to you there? You're all of a
Well,
sudden
I'm learning.
exposed.
Yeah.
Exactly, tell me about it.
I'm exposed, and the lecturers are marvelous. Brandeis camp was an unusual camp, and the lecturers were all very great. And I realized after the Holocaust that they wanted to build a socialist state for the Jews. And I knew that
You're sympathetic to socialism.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was very important to me. That's why I'm so. And the people I met, David's friends, were all very wonderful people. They all had dreams of building a better world. And but this time, of course, I knew more what happened in Germany. I sort of woke up.
Yes, I'm sure a lot of people woke up after the Holocaust.
And when I told my mother, I don't think believed that we would go to Israel and or to Palestine. I think she thought that she could talk us out of it. But she also liked David. David is very easy to like.
And do you remember a specific moment in this summer when you're at one of these lectures?
Mm.
Do you remember one of these lectures that it was the hook that pulled you in? Do you remember anything specific?
No.
Okay. So you're at Brandeis, you're working there for the summer, you meet David.
And he's fired.
He's fired, that's right, he got fired, he told me. You stay on.
And I was very confused because I didn't quite understand this feeling of Bardeen about David preaching about Aliyah. I had to learn. I had to learn. I didn't know what a kibbutz was. I didn't know what a moshav was. I didn't know. I knew what a cow was, but I didn't.
Who taught you this?
A little I learned by myself, and also when David had meetings with the Garin, everything was new to me. The word Garin and.
Were you impressed?
By his friends?
By his friends, by
yes, they were all really.
So you're slowly becoming a Zionist.
I don't think so slowly. I think I became very rapidly. And no, the people, they were all really very intelligent, warm people that had an interest in doing something to improve the world. And it impressed me.
Now, when did you and David become serious?
Before he left, he must have asked me to marry him because I don't know how, when I got out of when I finished my working in Brandeis, my first date with David, he met me and we went. My first date with David was to the Brit of somebody who became later one of the one of the administrators in the Hebrew University. I had never even gone to a date with anyone, to a Brit, but that was
that's original.
Yeah.
Even today, that's original.
Yeah.
That's...
Anyway, I don't remember exactly, but we must have kept in touch because I knew that he wanted to marry me and he wanted me to go with him to Palestine.
So, do you want to go to Palestine?
I tell you, I wanted to build a better country, yes, for the Jews. I really did.
So, wait a second. Frieda, who comes at the beginning of the summer to Brandeis, is very different than the Frieda who leaves at the end of the summer.
You know what? I was the same Frieda because I was interested in improving the world. I was interested in what was happening. I was never, concerned with clothes or shoes or hair. I was concerned about the world, but now I had a specific goal, and that was Palestine.
So like I'm saying,
yeah.
Frieda who started,
okay,
different Frieda,
yeah,
who comes out, there's a love relationship, and there's an ideology.
And my boyfriend who wanted to be a capitalist, I threw him away.
You threw him away? Yeah, did you? Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you remember where you were when David proposed to you? Do you remember, was it still at camp? Was it, you don't remember? Okay. So after camp, he's living in New York, you're living in New York.
No, yeah.
In Queens.
I went
right?
back to South Ozone Park.
Excuse me?
I went back to live with my parents in South Ozone Park.
Your parents, do you share any of your new knowledge with them?
Yes, they knew that we were going to go to Palestine, and my parents liked him very much. But my father was disappointed that he didn't want to go into his shop. But I think my mother didn't believe it because later she suffered so much. I think that she thought she could. Who went to Palestine that she knew?
When did you guys get married?
In December 5th, 1946. And we came to Israel in 1947, May.
Wow. And you guys, I remember David telling me that you guys were living on the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Are you still working? Are you still
Yes, I
studying?
was still working, yes.
Not at Bellevue.
You know, I think I went back to Bellevue. For a very short time because I wasn't studying anymore.
Anything significant about that period of time from when you guys get married
Well,
until you leave Palestine?
I met his friends who were in Masada, and I learned all these words about what is a kibbutz and what is a moshav and what is a garin and what they're planning to do and where they're going. The name of kibbutzim, Ginigar and Hakshara, and it was the whole. And I started to try to. No, of course I was working in Bellevue because I started to try to learn some Hebrew, and also David didn't know Hebrew. This is a big lack for both of us.
Later on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when do you guys make the decision that you're making Aliyah? Because David, do you know what your husband is doing in New York at this time? Or
Yes. I knew that.
I mean, that was it's insane. I'm sure you had a.
I really was able to keep my mouth shut.
But you knew what your husband was doing.
Yes,
Can
of
you
course.
tell me what your husband was doing, even though we haven't he talks about it, but I want to just hear it from you.
Well, I knew that what he was doing because when we were in Atlanta, when we went to Atlanta to visit his mother, he was called back. So I knew about that, and I knew that about his courses, and but I wasn't frightened. Nothing. I don't know. I must be very dumb because I took everything easy until I got to Palestine.
We'll get to that, we'll get to that very soon. So you know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's very active.
Mm-hmm.
You're newlyweds. When does it like, honey, we're going to Palestine? Like, when does that happen?
We went in May, so we began to buy things to take with us. We began to buy on the Lower East Side. But I don't know. I don't remember because if we were going to the kibbutz, later we bought things for our apartment, but going to the kibbutz, I don't remember that we bought a great many things. And David took care of all this. I don't know, I was trusted him to do what he was doing. I wasn't part of the plans. He bought the tickets, told me what ship we're going on, and
what are your hopes when you're on your way? You have 3 weeks, right? Isn't the journey 3 weeks?
No, we were married in December.
No, from New York to Haifa.
Oh, on the ship.
Yeah.
I don't remember it was 3 weeks, but something very interesting happened on the ship. There's somebody very, very well known in my generation, Sylvia Crown, and her husband. She was a very, very sophisticated lady. She had a great deal of charm and education, and she so impressed me. If she could be a Zionist, I could be a Zionist too, because she wasn't she really had a lot, what's the word you have when you have charm and glamour, yes. And they were going to Kfar Blum, and also there was another couple going to Kfar Blum. So the people on the ship were also very interesting, and I enjoyed it very much. I liked meeting the people that were going to Palestine. I had no negative feelings about anything.
Sure. You get to Palestine in May of 1947, is that correct? Yeah, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What is your first memory?
Of Haifa. I was very impressed. I guess I'm like those people who think that we still ride camels. I was very impressed. And also we have a picture of all of the friends from Plugat Aliyah that met us it was a very positive experience. We stayed in a nice little hotel in Haifa, and it was very positive, our coming, very, very. The reception was wonderful.
Anything specific that you remember?
No, I remember all David's friends from Plugadalia, who weren't my friends because he had been with them, but they all came to, we have a picture of them waiting for us, which was very nice. And then we went to the hotel in Haifa. Haifa was beautiful in my eyes. And then we went to Giniga.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that experience.
I don't know. I wish I could remember things more to say. I don't know why. When we were there, we were given a tent to live in. Did you know that? Yeah. And we were just newly married, so we put the two beds together. David probably told you this. And we were told that we couldn't do that. We had to separate them. I don't think we listened to them. And the women were very, very bossy to me. For instance, my name in the States from Rabbi Per was Simcha. And I didn't know any Hebrew, but I knew Simcha Torah, and I knew the word Simcha as a wedding. So I liked it. And they said to me, no, you can't be Simcha, because Simcha is the name of an Ashkenazi boy and a Sephardi girl, and you're Ashkenazi. And this will probably shock you. I knew that Jews came from all over the world, but I didn't know the difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim. I didn't know that they had different names, that they have different tefillot. And so they said you could be Dina, Rina, something like that. And I became so unhappy in the kibbutz that I didn't want to be any Dina or Rina or anything. I wanted to be myself. The reason I was unhappy in the kibbutz, first I had worked so hard to be a nurse, and I loved it. And here I was working in the laundry with a very nice young lady, and she was teaching me Hebrew, chulsa, michnasai, chadzia, and then they gave us a young student to teach us Hebrew at night, and we just couldn't learn from her. She really wasn't a teacher. And also I realize now that the girls in the Garin had been friends for many, many years. I was a newcomer, I knew nothing. I was practically illiterate in their eyes. And at that time I was really very smart for a young, stupid girl. I didn't like the children's houses.
Okay.
Everything that
everything
that they've now changed is what I wanted. I would have gone to a Moshav Shitufi, but I want to leave, and I told David if he wants to come with me, Beseda. If not, I'll go by myself.
Wow.
No, I wouldn't stay in the kibbutz, so I dragged him away.
So socialism didn't really work out?
Well, I also realized at that time that you can't have equal. Life cannot be equal. We used to go to Haifa. We had to sit in a cafe to drink a cup of coffee. If somebody had a mother in Haifa, could I tell her, you can't go to Haifa, you have to sit in a cafe? And I realized at that time that you can try to make things equal, but you can't, because we were alone in the country, and my mother was in the States, and I couldn't stand the dining room. I couldn't, and when I was doing dishes, I couldn't stand the smell of sardines on the dishes. It was not for me, this. And living in the tent didn't seem to bother me as much as other things, but I really felt that. Oh, also, one of the things that concerned me very much, at that time men were sent on shlichut, and their wives stayed home in the kibbutz. And I wanted, if David went any place, I wanted to go with him. I didn't want to stay in the kibbutz. It was not for me, and it was a good decision that I made. Otherwise, I would have been very frustrated.
What else frustrated you about the kibbutz?
First of all, the boys were okay with. I was friendly. The girls were a tight-knit group that had known each other for years and years and years. I didn't feel very, they accepted me very, they were nice, but it wasn't, and mostly the work I so missed. I had put so much into nursing, and I realized unless I learned Hebrew, they told me, you can't work in the infirmary, because there were very few, if anybody spoke English on the kibbutz, I don't know. It was that bothered me very much. I didn't see my future as a nurse ever.
Wow.
And one thing very interesting happened when I was working in the fields with agriculture. I didn't like working in the fields, I didn't like working in the kitchen. But what's the word, epiphany, when you think you've seen something? I was building out carrots, and all of a sudden I felt that thousands of years ago, I had been working in that field. And it gave me a feeling that I belong here. That's all of a sudden, like I've been here before. Not that I like working in the field, but I got this.
Was it like a moment that you had?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna get some water. Okay. Whew, so now after we had the tea and the salt, I've done that too though. So, it's funny because I lived on a kibbutz for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I also realized that it was not for me, and definitely in a different time and age than you were there, but in kibbutz. But I was talking about this to David. Like coming from New York, from the Upper West Side, you're working in Bellevue. You're here, and you come to a tent with 2 cots. And it's like, you don't speak the language.
Did you see the picture of our tent?
No.
I'll show.
You'll show me after. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
No, but
how does one...
The conditions didn't bother me. It was mostly the work and the people, and also the lack of language.
Did people look down at you?
No.
The Sabras, did they look down at you?
No, not
Did they
at
make fun
all.
of you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. No. I never felt that they looked down on us at all. Maybe they thought we weren't good workers, but...
They didn't call you gringos or...
No.
Or,
I don't remember any insults at all.
Okay. So when does it hit you that you got to get out of there?
We must have been there about 3 or 4 or 5 months, and we had friends in Jerusalem. Really I don't know whether I was in a semi-dream but anyway, we came to Jerusalem, and I fell in love with Jerusalem. I couldn't get over the beauty of Jerusalem, and we lived with another couple who, Aryeh and Batya, and I got a job. Oh, wait, I'm trying to think.
What year is this, do you know? This is 47, this is probably, you came in May 47?
Yeah, so this is 48.
This is like, no, could still be 47.
May. That's right, could be the end of 47.
End of 47, maybe
Yeah.
you guys get here after the Chagim.
I don't remember Nichagim.
No, after, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you come, well, David apparently came to Palestine to go to school.
Yes, he had a student visa. I must have had one too, because unless I came as his wife, I don't know.
Well, you were married to him.
Yeah.
What do you remember about, so you leave the kibbutz, what do you remember about Jerusalem when you first came here? Like, what do you remember that captured your eye?
The beauty of the hills, coming through the Judean hills, and everything was beautiful to me. It was just a lovely looking city, and I liked it very, very much. I liked where we were living, and I liked Rivka was her name, and we also had friends who were Americans who were studying at the Hebrew University. So we had a very nice crowd, and I'm trying to think, I applied to get a job at Hadassah Hospital, But she said to me, and that probably saved my life, because who knows if I wouldn't have been on the Shayra, that I had to know more Hebrew. And so she didn't give me Mrs. Cantor. And I was in the Haganah.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. So you moved to Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm. We lived in Rehov Marcos.
Rehov Ma'alot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Ma'alot. Later was Marcos, yeah.
Or
In back of Ratisbon, the monastery.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Off of Shmuel HaNagid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You can't find work in Palestine as a nurse.
No, because I didn't know Hebrew.
I
Yeah.
understand. What do you do?
Well, David and I started studying Hebrew at the Hebrew University. They had.
So you were studying
Yes,
Palestine?
yes. I knew I had
Mount
it.
Scopus.
Yeah. And then we no longer could go, we had some private lessons with this very, very famous, I can't remember his name, the Hebrew teacher that wrote Elef Milim. David, remember, he's very, very famous and a charming man. And little by little, I was learning Hebrew, but.
And what's going on? You mentioned about joining the Haganah.
I don't remember joining, or they joined me.
You don't remember?
No, I don't remember. I remember being, but I.
What do you remember? What's your first recollection of that?
A very stupid recollection. On Rehov Nevi'im, there was a bakery store called Pat, very famous at that time. And I don't know, I was like in a dream, because I understood things and I don't know how I understood. They told me to stand on the merpeset, on the porch, and watch for Arabs coming from the old city. But they didn't know I couldn't tell the difference between an Arab and a Jew. I did that, and I did that for quite, and then I accompanied, and all of this is like a dream. I accompanied some fellows from the Haganah to the central bus station. I remember that, and I had Rimonim. What do you call Rimonim?
Pomegranates?
Yeah, but not what you throw.
Grenades.
Grenades in my brassiere.
What?
Yes, yeah. I walked with them because I don't know what they would do. I tell you, I didn't know Hebrew, so anything they told me to do, I did, but...
Wait, if you got caught with grenades, if you got caught by the British...
I don't know, they didn't tell me what would have happened to me, but I didn't get caught. And then I also went with them with ammunition out to the hills of Jerusalem to, not Bet Shemesh, to... Motza, yes. There was equipment in the car. I'm telling you, I was like I just did these things because they told me to do it.
Who's they?
These young men.
How do you enlist in this? How do you get involved in this?
I don't know. They just came to, maybe through David or something. Many of my friends were listening on telephones, listening to the conversations of the British, but I never worked well the telephones. And then I finally got a job as a nurse.
Where?
There had been a tuberculosis hospital in Mikor Chaim, and because it was, you know where that is, it was too dangerous, they moved to Rehov Nevi'im, which had been a girls' college, and I worked there. And I guess little by little I was learning Hebrew and understanding more. It was a tuberculosis hospital. And I had very cleverly and purposely become pregnant because I was afraid if something happened to David, there would be nothing left of him. And I remember...
Was that really your thought?
Yes, definitely.
Can you explain a little bit more?
I can't explain it because it's so stupid. No, I figured life was so dangerous.
I want to know about that period of yours. I want to know about the siege.
Life was so you never knew if when you came home if somebody would have been killed by the because we were besieged all the time, and we were frightened all the time, but we continued functioning all the time. And well, like one time when I was waiting for the nurses to come back so I could go to lunch or something, they were hit by shrapnel near the Bikor Cholim hospital, and everyone was saying how lucky because they were able to be taken care of in the hospital. And sitting in the garden, this is on Rehov Nevi'im, inside where there's the girls, I could hear the shots from out Scopus. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew something bad, 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 because it went on and on and on and on. And I'm thinking, here I'm sitting here, and there's a war there, and malasop, there's nothing to do, just do your work.
What was it?
I was a nurse there.
No, what you heard?
It was the shooting at the Shayaraf.
Tell me about that.
No, I'm telling you, I heard.
Tell me about it.
How many people were killed? 84 or so. The doctors and nurses who were going up to the Hadassah hospital there in Harat Sofim. And the British stood by and let them shoot. And I think it was one of the worst incidents of the siege of Jerusalem. And we didn't have food, and
Tell me about that. You're married, you got a husband.
And I'm pregnant.
You're pregnant. Later you give birth in Tel Aviv, we'll get to that also.
Yeah.
This whole time you're there, you're living in a besieged city.
And we can't communicate with my parents.
Why?
And Americans had left. The American consulate had arranged for Americans to leave, and many of the people we knew left. But of course, David wouldn't leave. And if he wouldn't leave, I wouldn't leave. I'm not sure I wouldn't have left if he had.
Just getting some more water.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's off.
So go read the Kindle in another room.
So tell me.
Close the door.
All right. So tell me, you're not in contact with your parents. You can't. You're an only child. Don't you feel bad?
I tell you, I was so concerned about Israel and Palestine, that I don't think I thought about them. I was really very, very upset what was happening in Jerusalem, and I wanted a Jewish state, and I didn't think it was fair what the Arabs were doing. I was very...
Or the British?
Oh yes, well the British. And blowing up the Jerusalem Post and this and that, I thought it was... I was glad I was here.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me about the siege. I mean, food, water,
Look, we were living with another couple, and once in a while we were given food, rationed, and she would go and get it for the two of us. I don't remember starving. I remember getting kuzbara in the field, and but I don't remember. We were able to manage. We were just two young people, so we didn't. And I know that people with children had problems, but we weren't starving. We didn't starve. That part didn't bother me very much. The shooting and the shrapnel and the fighting and the British and the blowing up buildings bothered me very much.
What was one of the things that bothered you the most in the shootings and bombings, and besides the convoy, the Hadassah convoy?
The Post building.
What happened?
The Jerusalem Post, that was blown up on Rehov, Rav Kook, I think it was. And also on Ben Yehuda was terrible, terrible. And I was sent, I don't know how I was sent, but I was sent to Bikor Cholim Hospital.
By who?
I don't know. Somebody must have come and told me, Frieda, go to Bikor Cholim Hospital. Because I went and I sat there and I did absolutely nothing.
So when you
It-
carried
I-
grenades in your bra,
Yeah. Was I afraid?
yeah,
No. I don't know. I must have been very, very dumb. They told me what to do, and I did it. Malagid.
you didn't ask any questions? Somebody gives you grenades, you don't ask any questions?
No. I just went. Sounds incredible, doesn't it? Now I wonder how I even got in here, but these were nice young men, and I went with them.
So you carried the weapons for them because they thought that you wouldn't be searched.
Probably.
You were a decoy. You weren't a decoy,
Yeah.
you were
And I don't even know. I tell you, when you live in a world where language is practically nothing, it's very difficult. I wasn't very verbal, or it wasn't that I was dumb. I just did things. I don't know, because it had to be done. What I was doing was not a waste of time. I trusted the people, what they were doing, that they knew what they were doing. And I remember when David was away for a few days, and I'm not religious, I went to the Bet Knesset Yeshurun, and I sat up there and prayed and prayed and prayed he would come back.
How was it to be the wife of a member of the Haganah who was in active duty?
Well, that's what I'm telling you. When he was away, I went to Yeshurun to pray that he'll come back, and something very interesting happened. I kept feeling worse and worse and worse and worse. And I thought it was because he was away. And finally I went to a doctor and he said I had hepatitis, that it wasn't just loneliness. So he gave me medication and I got over it.
The hepatitis.
But it was very difficult worrying. In fact, I don't know who, but I know I was asked to go to Cyprus to work as a nurse. And I said, first of all, I don't know Yiddish. They said, that's not important, you'll learn it. But I couldn't go to Cyprus and leave David here. There was no communication. If he was killed, I would never know it. And I very much regret that I didn't, I know the reason I didn't go, but I very much regret that I wasn't in Cyprus.
See, to the camps where the survivors were,
Yeah.
right? So you actually didn't get to work here as a nurse.
I did.
Oh, then you did actually, yeah.
Yeah, I did. And then later I got a job in the Hadassah Hospital in Tel Aviv. When we got to Tel Aviv, I worked there. But the tuberculosis hospital was in Jerusalem, and then they moved them out. They moved them out to Tel Aviv, and we stayed on until we were flown out. But I did work as a nurse.
What else can you tell me about Jerusalem in that period of time?
One of the things that I regret so much, we hardly knew of Jerusalem because the siege started so quickly after we went once to the old city. So also this was maybe good or bad. Good, because when they said that the Arabs are in Katamon, I didn't realize that Katamon and Rechavi were practically next to each other. And I remember very much when the women came in from Kfar Etzion. They were housed in Madisborn Monastery. And so I knew that the Gush fell. And I remember they're hanging up diapers. It was so, what's the word, queer. A war's going on, their husbands have killed it, and they're hanging up diapers. It was very, and we had a friend who was always very, very frightened about what was going on. But a lot of our friends left.
Really?
Yes, they went with the American Shayara that took them out. But but no, we have friends who did stay also, so that I think I would have gone if David had agreed.
Really?
Yes. I think.
And when do you find out that you're pregnant?
While I was in Jerusalem. And so when we went to Tel Aviv and I worked in the Hadassah hospital there, coming back on the crowded hot bus, I almost fainted. And that's when I stopped working there because physically it was not good for me.
We'll get to Tel Aviv in a sec. Is there any other stories that you remember? Anything? Another very important question that I have to ask you. I'm just going to get some more water. Where are you on the 29th of November?
Oh, we were in Guinea-Gaw.
1947.
We were in Guinea-Gaw.
Tell me about it.
Well, all I remember is that there was so much excitement, and I remember people sitting around listening to the radio and shouting, Ken, 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 Lo, Ken, 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 Ken. And then dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing and a lot of happiness. And the next day when we left, that's when the first shots started after the war. But no, I remember that very, very, I don't even know why we were at Guinea-Gaw. We probably went back to see friends or something. But we were definitely in Guinea-Gaw. But we were living in Jerusalem at that time.
What is Jerusalem for you?
What does that mean?
What does it stand for you? What is it? You said you loved Jerusalem. You got to Jerusalem immediately. You fell in love.
I just the buildings, the people here, and also the hills of Judea was so gorgeous to come into Jerusalem. Even when we went out to Moza, I came back. I said, David, you don't know how beautiful the hills are. I didn't care about the neshek, the arm, what do you call it? The neshek, the armament we had with us. The
slicks.
No, slick. Oh, it was probably hidden in the car someplace. But oh, that's the cat out there. I just liked. I liked the architecture. I liked everything about Jerusalem. There was nothing. I liked the little stores. I was just. It pleased me aesthetically.
Was there a nightlife here during the siege?
I don't remember nightlife.
No.
I do remember that before the siege, we were invited to the home of the Lewin Epsteins. He was one of the first dentists. Do you know the name? He was one of the founders of the School of Dentistry, and she was a nurse. And they invited the Americans over for Thanksgiving evening, and they lived in a big Arab apartment. It was very, very nice. His son later became a dentist in the School of Dentistry in Hadassah, and it's a very well-known name in the history of dentistry. And I don't know, I just was happy here.
Really?
I think after the kibbutz, that's probably a reaction.
After the kibbutz, I'll take a siege in Jerusalem, no problem.
No, I was very concerned. What I was really concerned, because I said to David, if I am killed, I want to be buried in a coffin in Brooklyn. I don't want to be put in the earth with no coffin. It was very, I'm not joking, I really couldn't stand the idea of being buried here. And I knew that they wouldn't ship my body back. But no, we were concerned about being killed. There was no.
Yeah, were you?
Oh, definitely.
And you know,
that's why I wouldn't go to Cyprus, because if David was killed, how would I know? And we had a friend that was killed at an abattoir. Later we went to David.
Tell me about that.
David had a friend that was, that was killed. His wife was here, and we had to go to Bikor Cholim to ascertain that that was his body. So no, it was...
Was he killed by Arabs?
Yes, yes. They were defending the Rekevet, the Tachanat Rekevet or something. It was very, very dangerous. But I think it's good to be young.
What do you mean?
I don't know. We were able to take it. We were able to take it.
Did it have a toll on you? physically, mentally?
No.
Living here in this difficult
But I remember
time?
one thing that it was very not nice. When I was working in the tuberculosis hospital, I would steal a little milk for my baby, which was meant I was stealing milk from the patients.
For your baby? What baby?
My pregnancy. I was pregnant, so I was stealing milk for the baby. I was drinking milk that should have been given to the patient, not a lot of milk, just a sip here and there. And I felt very guilty about it.
Really? Tell me, what do you mean?
When we served food, so there was milk for the tea or the coffee, so I would take a few sips of the milk.
What, you weren't allowed to?
No, it was the food for the patients.
And there was no milk in Jerusalem?
I don't remember getting milk. I don't remember what we ate. My memory of that time is being frightened and worried and concerned, and David being away, and I remember going to Yeshua and sitting.
So, but okay, sorry, please go on, yeah, to the synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole time you're also pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a doctor here that you go to? I mean,
No, I didn't go to him. It was just the beginning. I didn't. The doctors were also not. I didn't even know about going to a doctor. I didn't need to go to a doctor. Also, my friend B.D. Renov. Wait, how could that be? Oh, she was very pregnant. She had a baby on Hat Sofim at that time. And we had very good friends. It was a very strong...
Tell me about the Anglo community in Jerusalem, 1947, 1948.
Well, I remember we were very close to B.D. Renov and Jerry Renov. And we were living with this couple, Aryeh and Rivka Agris. And we knew a lot of the Levines were here. And Moshe Levine, that's now it was a correspondent for Time magazine for many, many years, and his wife Betty, and they were in the Haggadah. She was in the Haggadah listening to telephones. I don't know why they didn't give me telephone, and we had other friends. The Crowns were here, and we didn't feel lonely at all. The ones who stayed, I think we were very, not proud of ourselves, but we weren't sissies. We weren't crybabies.
But you're saying that there was a tight Anglo community here.
We were friends. We're still friends to this day, those who are still alive. In fact, Ruth Goodman, who just died this week, they left for a convention, she and her husband Louis Goodman. We were sure that was an excuse to get out, and they came back, which was incredible. But we didn't feel the lack of friends in
Jerusalem you didn't?
No, not at all. And also there was a couple named Friedman that lived on Rehov Shmuel HaNagid. They had a lovely apartment. Even today, it would be considered a luxury apartment. They were very nice to us, and they would invite us over. And I think at that time, the Harmons too, Abe Harmon, we knew them. We weren't lacking for support. We weren't feeling alone. And then there was this Dove Sugarman. We knew a lot of people who were here, so that it was enough, not a lot, but it was enough to keep us not feeling lonely and abandoned.
Because both of you are definitely on your own.
Yeah. But we didn't feel abandoned. We really didn't. We didn't feel that we were doing anything extraordinary either.
You didn't feel like you were living in a historical moment?
Mm-hmm. a very important moment, because we knew that if for the Israeli, and I also felt it was so unfair, because why should all these Arabs be beating up on us when they just gave us a little teeny country and we needed it so badly. And I remember I passed the American flag and I was angry at them because they weren't doing enough to help us. And I really felt that we needed this country and that it was worthwhile, but not worthwhile, that we had to fight to win. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. So what I was concerned most about is that David would be killed, because he did much more dangerous things than I did.
So you don't remember how you joined the Haganah?
You know, I'm not even sure that, because I don't remember being sworn in. I didn't have this ceremony in the dark with the candle. I think they just used me, I don't know. No, I wasn't sworn in. There was no swearing in. But I don't even know why they sent me to Rehov Nevi'im to look for Arabs. Because now it makes sense, because it was the old city and they were looking to see if Arabs would be walking down. You understand what I'm talking about?
Before we leave Jerusalem, is there anything else you want to tell me about Jerusalem, about that period of time? Anything significant that happened, that you witnessed, that you saw?
Well, the bombings on Ben Yehuda.
Tell me about that.
It was shocking. It was shocking to see that building on Ben Yehuda being blown up, several buildings. I remember that distinctly. And also I remember there were areas we couldn't go to, Bevengrad. And we were in a very small area. And as I said, I hardly knew Jerusalem. I hardly had a chance to, so maybe that was very good, because I didn't realize how close everything was. I knew Rechavia. Of course, I didn't know Tel Bia. I knew Rechavia.
Rechavia and the center.
Yeah.
Right?
And Tzal, yeah, but yeah.
Ben Yehuda Street, Jaffa, King George.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys go shopping in Machane Yehuda in the market?
No. I don't even know if there was a market. There probably was, but we were just two people. We ate very simply. Whatever we were given was enough for us. I don't remember ever being hungry. I don't remember ever complaining. I don't remember. I do remember that Rivka got the live chickens that she had to take to. But I think also living with them was very nice. So we weren't so alone.
And they were also a young couple, right?
Yeah, and both of them had hearing aids. Did David tell you that?
No.
When I married David, I said I wanted to marry a tall, dark, handsome man. I married a short, bald, Jewish man with a hearing aid. At that time, they had hearing aids on their chest. And also Aryeh had a hearing aid.
Who's Aryeh?
That's who we lived with Aryeh and Rivka Agris. And we got along very, very well. Rivka was from Poland, and she had had a good Hebrew education. And I think probably she helped me a lot to understand what was going on. And we were studying Hebrew. I can't remember the name of one of the most famous Hebrew teachers. He wrote this book, Elef Milim. I can't remember. Later, tomorrow morning, I'll call you.
So to sum up Jerusalem, you had besides the siege and the terror that was going on, you really did love Jerusalem.
Very much.
You found a connection.
Very.
And then David gets into the Air Force.
Wait, David, let me just ask
Yeah.
you. What was the name of our famous Hebrew teacher? Aaron Rosen. Later, when the Russians began studying Hebrew, they used his book, Elef Milim. So then, okay. Why is he allowed in and I wasn't allowed in?
You were allowed in, you came in and out.
Not as much as he does.
Well, you know.
Okay, so where are we now? We're finished?
We're finished with Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Tel Aviv. Night and day.
I think David probably told you we saw a tomato in the gutter and we picked it up. No, it really was, it was incredible because life in Tel Aviv was normal. We had ice cream and we went to restaurants and it was unbelievable, the difference. And I also don't remember, I remember thinking that I didn't even know what I was going through. I thought the whole country was like Jerusalem. I didn't know that there was such a difference. And it was very nice there because the relatives met us and we had, it was a very positive experience living in the, you know, now I realize that we were living in apartments of Arabs that had left.
In Jaffa.
Yeah, and at that time it didn't bother me. Now I'm a different person.
Can you explain that?
Well, we were at war, so they were our enemies. So that at war, you don't love your enemies. And they were being very cruel to us. And I didn't know enough about why they left, those who left willingly and unwillingly, and that wasn't part of our knowledge at that time.
What do you do when you get to Tel Aviv?
I get a job in Hadassah Hospital in Tel Aviv, and I work in the children's ward there. And also, I'm very, very sorry that at that time, they now talk about the Ethiopian kids, not the Ethiopian, the Ammonites, that were stolen. I know nothing about it. Also at that time still, my Hebrew was good enough, Lech Levi Mayim and things like that, but I heard nothing about that at that time. Now I'm very curious if it did happen or didn't happen.
Wow. And that's like, again, it's something that I'm just trying to get to, is like, you're coming from a city that's besieged,
Mm-hmm.
and you're coming to a city that's,
Normal.
hey, yeah, and they're only 35 miles away from one another.
It was because of getting up to. Oh, I remember the Shayarot coming in for Pesach, and they were bringing food.
Can you tell me about the Shayarot coming into Jerusalem?
Yeah,
Where would you go meet them?
They were on they probably were on Jaffa Road. They rode on Jaffa Road.
And did you see people like wounded, or what did you see?
No. No, these were people. This was bringing food.
In.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Pesach. It's good to be stupid, you know?
Why?
No, because otherwise I would have been in a much worse, I wasn't in a bad situation. I was very concerned about David. That was my big worry. And I was also concerned that we might lose the war, but...
Okay. Is there a backup plan?
I thought we would all be killed. I'm telling you, I didn't
Really?
want...
And you're like, okay, whatever.
No, I just I don't want to be...
I'm not getting too excited, whatever it is.
No,
what it
I just
is.
don't want to be buried.
What's that?
I just want to be buried in a coffin. That was my big worry.
Not in the talus.
No. I don't know if women are buried in a talus.
No, it's not a talus, it's kind of like a...
Shroud.
A shroud, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you find living in Tel Aviv, working in Tel Aviv? David apparently is probably quite happy with his new job.
No,
He's promoted.
and also, David had some distant relatives who were very, very good to us. And living in the camp Ariel, we had a lot of friends, and it was okay. And also at that time, there was Aliyah from Bulgaria.
What's that?
There was Aliyah from Bulgaria. And when I used to go, when I used to go to the grocery store, they would be speaking Bulgarian, which is very close to...
In Jaffa.
Yeah, in Jaffa. It's very close to Spanish, and I had studied Spanish, so I love that experience. And also, after Varda was born, I didn't have postpartum depression. I had postpartum euphoria. I couldn't believe. I know it sounds really and I'm not a follower of Jesus, but I kept thinking I've had a baby in the same country that Jesus was born. And I would walk down the street and I'd feel so proud of myself. And we were very happy. We had good friends, and the war was over, and we had won. And David liked his work, and then the problem began with my mother. And I tell you, looking back, I don't know how I could have been so stupid. And that's when we had to go back to the States because of her. You heard about her depression.
Yeah.
And they thought I'd come back with a baby and put it in her arms, and she would cheer up, but she didn't. No, she had to have shock therapy, and no, she was really. And we never talked about it. Now I look back on it. We talked about the present. We didn't talk about the past. I don't know how she felt when she couldn't come. Oh, David's sister used to meet with her, and she told me that she used to cry all the time.
David's sister used to meet with your mom?
No, she lived in the States.
Right.
So she lived in New York, so she would meet occasionally. I never questioned her too. I guess I don't want to know.
I'm interested, it's something that you don't really remember, but your involvement in the Haganah.
Mm. What are you interested in?
You said you don't remember how you were recruited.
No, I know I wasn't. I remember distinctly. Because I remember hearing about all these people being sworn. Maybe because I was a nurse and I was looking for a job as a nurse, that they just used me for little things. I'm very sorry, but I was not sworn in that I know of.
Yeah, sure.
Because I remember hearing about those ceremonies in a dark room with a candle and putting your hand on the Bible.
And a gun.
Yeah, not me.
Did you ever shoot a gun or anything, or?
No.
No.
I didn't have a gun. Most of the time, I think I worked at the tuberculosis hospital, and I was scared stiff of getting tuberculosis. I was so scared. I was so but that was the only thing I couldn't. The Hadassah, I told you, she didn't want me.
Right, because you speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
And how come they took you at Hadassah in Tel Aviv?
By that time, I must have known enough Hebrew because I had had lessons with Roseanne, and I'd been associating, so I knew more. Dayenu?
Dayenu is very super soon. It's your first daughter is born in Tel Aviv, is that correct?
In Jaffa, in the camp. She was the first baby born there.
In the Khan area?
Mm-hmm.
You guys spent 2 years here, is that correct? Between 47 and 49?
Mm-hmm.
You lived in 3 places?
Girigar, yeah. Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. It seemed like a much longer time, though. the kibbutz, it seems we were in the kibbutz a very long time when I was miserable. We were in Jerusalem for a very short time when it was wonderful, and then we had the war, and then in Tel Aviv. But we didn't have much of Tel Aviv because we had the baby and David. We were in Jaffa, so life was very.
David told me that while he was in the Air Force, he didn't really have any time for anything.
No, I don't remember doing anything and going to theater or anything. Nothing, and I don't remember complaining. I just remember being very, very euphoric that I had a baby in Israel.
Okay.
All by myself.
All by yourself.
And I remember how lousy it was in the Tel Aviv hospital. Oh, I remember comparing it to deliveries in the States. I thought it was abnormal. It was so cruel. They did nothing, but I lived through it. And then I had a very nice experience. I was sent to a home for new mothers in Ra'anana, I think it was, or someplace, Yarkona. It was lovely. They took such good care of us because I had no one to help me at home, no family. It was a very nice setup.
Do you think you guys would have stayed if it wasn't for your mother?
Oh, definitely, definitely. There was no question there. We were very happy.
Was your father still alive at the time?
Yes, yes, yes. But my father was, he wasn't very, you know, at that time we didn't have cars and he couldn't have managed. My mother was sent to a psychiatric hospital and it was very sad, very sad. And after the shock treatment that she got, she was never really the same Anna that she had been before. No, she knew where she was, and and I never sat down and talked to her and asked her what she had gone through, because I guess it would have been more depressing.
Interesting.
But I feel very, very unhappy about it. And the longer I live, the unhappier I get.
About what?
About what she must have gone through. But
being a nurse back at that period of time was a big deal here in 1948, 47. Nurses, they needed nurses.
we're in Israel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's why they asked me to go to Jaffa. Not to Jaffa, to go to Cyprus. And, but I was working I was doing what I was doing in the
hospital that you worked for in Rehov Nevim, who was it, like a...
It was the Misrat HaBriyut. It was a Misrat HaBriyut hospital. And they just, it was, they had, I never did see the hospital, because I didn't even know where Mikor Chaim was, but they had taken them out of Mikor Chaim to bring, that was only temporary. Then later they were transferred to Tel Aviv. They didn't stay during the whole war. Because I'm telling you, they didn't have a lot of food to feed them.
Yeah. So listen, do you think that we're gonna probably wrap up pretty soon?
Good.
But I wanna kind of go over everything that we talked about. We talked about your childhood. We talked about your exposure to Zionism at Brandeis.
Mm-hmm.
Your Aliyah with David,
Mm-hmm.
Kibbutz Genigar,
Mm-hmm.
Jerusalem, and Jaffa.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a story that we missed? Is there something that if you just think for a while, you'll be like, I got something that I forgot to tell you about Jerusalem, about Tel Aviv, about something that has to do with the establishment of the state of Israel. Where were you on the 15th of May, 1948?
Well, that time we were already in Paris.
In Paris?
Because we were flying home. We left.
No, you had to be in Israel in 48.
No, we were in Paris. The first anniversary, we were in Europe. We must have left May 7th or something like that.
No, but 1948, the Declaration of Israel.
We were here. I told you we were in Genigar.
No, that's Kaftet November. That's
yeah.
I'm talking about when Ben Gurion declares the state.
Yeah.
On May 15th, 1948.
So we were in Jerusalem now.
Yeah.
But we left before the first anniversary. We were in Paris.
Okay, that's the first anniversary, May 1949.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I'm talking about May 1948.
Yeah. But we heard him
Yeah, you remember that?
vaguely. I remember.
Vaguely. Okay, Frieda, we're gonna wrap it up. Is there anything that you can think of? Any story? Any?
No. When I look back on it, I just wish I'd been smarter. So I would know more answers to your questions.
Well, it's fine. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up. And I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
I told you we could probably do this in one session, and we did.
And I'm glad I gave you tea with salt.
I'm glad you gave me tea with salt.
But I gave it to myself too.
Exactly. So I'll live.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Frieda. And we are.